Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. This is the economiccollapseblog.com. This is a website that I follow regularly. It gives lots of great articles, all dedicated to financial crisis, economic collapse, and the signs of the times and the seasons as it relates to the economy. And I think the economy is the biggest factor. It's going to be the one thing that is really the line between what we know today as kind of an easy living Western world sort of a life into, and it's the cutover point into the tribulation period, the last days, when the end times really kick off. I think an economic collapse is kind of the thing that flips us over, turns the page, if you will, in terms of Bible prophecy, and catapults us into end time prophetic sequences. And the reason I believe that is it's the one event that can occur that affects the whole world, all the way around the world, affects all the countries of the world. If you have a war, if a war starts, well, it only affects a certain portion of the world, the Middle East or Asia or etc. If there's other things that happen, a nuclear weapon goes off or an electromagnetic pulse, it only affects even a single country. An economic collapse is one of the things that affects the whole world, and so I think if the for the end times to kick off, I think this is the one thing that really kicks off everything for everybody. And that's really why we don't see Western nations named in Ezekiel 38 or Isaiah 17 or other end-time biblical prophecies. You certainly don't see the modern names. So without further ado, from the economiccollapseblog.com, here are 11 reasons so many experts believe the U.S. economic crisis is imminent. And remember, when I say imminent, it does mean it could happen at any time, and it seems like it could happen right away. But it may not happen for a year or two. But that doesn't mean it's not imminent at this point in time. Based on the data, it is still imminent. This says the storm clouds that were gathering on the horizon are now directly above us, it says, and mainstream media is filled with stories about the next recession. So mainstream media is now on the recession bandwagon. And this apparently is going to have effect on Trump's chances of winning 2020. And of course, the mainstream media is against Trump. And so they will put anything out there that prevents Trump from winning. And so this is one of the things that could tip the balance in terms of public opinion on Trump and whether he gets reelected in the United States, is whether the economy is doing well or not. It says, let's see, here are the following 11 reasons why so many experts believe that believe now that the U.S. Economic crisis is imminent. So number one, last week, the spread between the U.S. 2-year and 10-year yields turned negative for the first time in 12 years. This is the inverted yield curve. An inversion in the yield curve has occurred prior to every single U.S. recession since the 1950s. This is one of the most important signals that we have seen yet. This is a big deal. Gregory Minorino, if you watch him, he speaks about this one. Number two, U.S. consumer sentiment fell to the lowest level that we have seen in all of 2019. So confidence. Remember, the U.S. dollar, fiat currencies are held afloat by confidence. As soon as confidence is lost in that fiat currency, that means people start trading it. And as soon as confidence is lost, the economy collapses based on that fiat currency. And that fiat currency goes the way of the dodo bird. Number three, 74% of economists surveyed by the National Association for Business Economics believe the recession will begin in the United States by when? This is an interesting year. By the end of 2021. Now, I believe 2021 is when the 7-year tribulation or 7-year period kicks off. So I think the economic collapse is going to happen prior to that. And many economists believe that it's going to happen in the United States by or before 2021. before the end of 2021, that is. That's what they believe. I think it's going to happen sooner than later. Number 4, U.S. industrial production slipped back into contraction territory. So products are not being manufactured in the United States. It's slowly going downwards. Number 5, the IHF Market Manufacturing Purchaser Managers Index just fell to the lowest level that we have seen since when? September 2009. So that's just after the collapse of 2008. Number 6, just like we witnessed in 2008, fear and volatility have returned to Wall Street in a major way. In fact, it says, so far this month we have already seen the 4th and 7th largest single-day point declines in U.S. stock market history. Number 7, the total bankruptcy filings in the United States has steadily been shooting up, and it rose 5% during the month of July. Bankruptcies increasing. Number 8, major U.S. retailers to shut down more stores, and we have continued to stay on a pace that would break an all-time record for store closings in a single year. So when you look at the big chains, Walmart's, for example, they're closing stores. That's because people are not buying. That means people are running out of money. They're going into debt. And so people are not able to spend money anymore. And as soon as spending stops in an economy, as soon as money circulation slows down, that means we're heading into a very, very bad time as people will start losing jobs. Number 9, as discussed yesterday, on a year-over-year basis, U.S. freight shipment volume has fallen for 8 months in a row. Number 10, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, the probability that a recession will happen within the next 12 months is now the highest it has ever been since the last financial crisis of 2008. Number 11, the final reason in this article, and I'll put this article in link in the description so you can read it. But number 11 says Trump is suggesting that the Federal Reserve should cut interest rates by 100 basis points. That's 1 percentage point, and that the Fed should restart quantitative easing as soon as possible. So printing money out of thin air, there's no backing. Of course, fiat currency is not backed by the dollar or even oil at this point. It's just made up out of thin air. It's numbers on a computer. And so they want to print money out of thin air to prop up the confidence of people using fiat currency. It says both of these moves would be considered an emergency measure that should only happen if a major economic downturn was imminent. So based on all these factors, it seems like a major economic downturn is imminent. I believe I saw an article about Home Depot. They're worried about the trade tariffs causing a slowdown in purchasing, customer purchasing, wood, construction materials. And they're right, because the biggest factor, that the trigger event that initiated 1929, the Great Depression, was trade tariffs implemented by the government of the United States, in fact, battling other world economies, trying to get fair transfer of goods and services. And so it was trade tariffs that really caused the slowdown and initiated the panic on Wall Street by the investors, so that they got out. And that's exactly what's happening right now. In that list, he said, I didn't even mention our rapidly escalating trade war with China. The 2 largest economies on the entire planet are engaged in an extremely bitter trade dispute, and that alone has the potential to plunge the entire global economy into a very deep downturn and a depression, the likes of which we've never seen, greater than the Great Depression, because none of us know now how to grow our own food. Back in 1929, at least they could grow their own food. At least it wasn't an existential threat, and people could still find food. But now we can't find food. We aren't able to. The cities are so huge. There's not enough food stored, and we haven't even mentioned the famines that are coming, the lack of food. Remember the flooding in the U.S. Midwest, and there's all sorts of food shortages. So you have those food shortages on top of economic collapse, and you have a recipe for absolute apocalyptic disaster where people are dying. Millions of people are potentially dying, and the Bible does have something to say about how many people are dying. 2/3 of the population of the earth at one point are going to die. And so those are scriptures that maybe in the next video we can look at and see what points to it. But economic collapse really is the next thing on the prophetic agenda at this point in time. And I've been saying that for a little while. So I think that's coming. So I will leave it there, guys. You can read this article if you want. I'll put the link in the description. Thanks for watching. Please share the video and please support the channel if you're able. And we will see you guys in the next video.